皆さん、こんにちは。チャンネルへようこそ。トレード期限まであと5日と迫る中、ドジャースのアンドリュー編成本部長が重要な最新情報を語ってくれました。今回の動画では、チームのトレード戦略や、グラスノー、スネルといった主力投手の復帰状況、そして何より、大谷翔平選手の最近の投球不調の本当の理由と膝の状態について詳しくお届けします。それでは、早速インタビューの内容を見ていきましょう。
Good, considering it's 5 days from the deadline.
Oh, get ready. Obviously, there's just, you guys have a lot of moving parts right now. You've got Edwin Diaz coming back, Blake Snell's on his rehab, Tyler Glasnow through today, Kike yesterday. How does that work just as you are trying to understand what the needs are for this team? And you also have so many players, so many valuable players who are also getting healthy. How do you just manage the needs and what you have and understanding that?
Yeah, I think for each guy, it's going through it on an individual level. Obviously Edwin's back, Kike yesterday, and then it's kind of each guy and where Snell is in his progression, Blake Trinan, Glasnow throwing alive, and what their injuries are and where it is currently. And I think with each of those guys, the injury part of it is healed. Now it's about the progression. It's about the build up to get them back. With some, like Blake Snell, he's made a rehab outing. Glass will soon do that. Blake Trinan as well. And then Will Smith, feel good about where we're going and each day getting better and really building back up to get him on a progression to get back. So the good news is for each of them, the injury part of it is behind us, and now it's about how to build up and get them back. And we talk about this a lot with guys coming back from injury. It's get them back to stay back. Not get them back as quickly as we can, but get them back to stay back. And so that is kind of what we are messing with. But as far as them coming back, we feel really good about it. It's balancing all of that, which we have had to do a number of Julys of thinking through that, but feel really good about the talent base we have in place, not just on field, but also how the group meshes together. And so, like always, we're going to be thoughtful and careful about what we potentially add to that dynamic. On one hand, we're always of the mind of, trying to do everything we can to put ourselves in the best position to win. Sometimes we're fortunate enough to line up on things, sometimes not. But I think always while being mindful of our group, the dynamic, where we're at, and also at least the last couple years of trying to make a really concerted effort to be really aggressive in the offseason to avoid having an acute need in July. Because when you have an acute need, it's really challenging because you're paying 150 cents, 200 cents on the dollar. So we try everything we can to avoid that, of having to do something. But when you're able to, be in a position to be a little bit more selective and, opportunistic about what potentially is available, it just puts you in a better position. So as much flexibility as we can have, the better.
How front of mind is it that you have players from the last 2 years that have proven they can play in October? What's the fine line, or how front of mind is that for you to not disrupt that and trying to help the team get better?
Yeah, I think that's fair. We've talked about this a lot. It's a tricky conversation of, an October player, because we've seen some guys that have had a Barry Bonds type October, and then the next year really scuffle. Like, there's just some ebbs and flows to that make it challenging, but obviously you can't control the outcomes of a batted ball and whether it's right at a left fielder or not, but what you can control is your heartbeat. And so guys that are comfortable playing in October, that are able to corral the increased emotion around it, definitely has value. And how to weigh that, I think, is the tricky part. It's the art of everything we do every year, is balancing the group that we have, their experience, we've talked about this. I think one of the challenges of, we talked about it last year, one of the challenges of repeating is there are two factors, but one that's relevant here, which is complacency can set in. And after we won in 24, it was something that we weren't concerned about at all with this group and just how they're wired, and felt the same way last year going into this year. And just to see the level of commitment every day from our guys in terms of how they prepare to go out and win a game that night, it's not any different than it was in 24. They are wired to try to win as many games as they possibly can and to win 11 games in October. And so that is special, and you want to make sure and not be flippant about it. That being said, if we can improve ourselves in a thoughtful way, then, that's our job. And so it's just balancing all of that. And it's hard to talk about in theoretical because that's challenging. But it's not lost on us, the guys that have been a huge part of what we've accomplished looking back. And just like everything, you have to weigh that as you make decisions going forward.
Which does that?
Dave was pretty adamant in your guys' belief of Otani coming back and being part of it, being back in the mound this year, being part of the postseason rotation with everything going on. What has given you guys that confidence, and what does we need to show or feel to begin ramping up against it?
Yeah. So with Show, I think, going back to the knee and the swelling, and, as we were trying to kind of manage that on the fly, the bicep kind of flared up on him. And that got better. But our biggest thing was, especially land leg, was to be really cautious here. Subconsciously, we didn't want to put him in a position where he was altering his mechanics to try to, protect the knee in any way. And so he's been throwing plyos. He's been keeping his arm going. It's just been much more about taking the strain off, the constant landing on that left leg. But I assume we'll get into catch play relatively soon, assuming the knee continues on the upward trajectory it is. It keeps getting better. And we just want to feel really good that that's in a spot where he can just repeat his delivery over and over, and we're not worried about any kind of subconscious changes. And everything is going directionally in the right way, and so we feel confident that we'll get his knee to a place. I know there was something about the arm and something from last night. He's throwing plyos. If it weren't for the knee, he would be pitching right now. He would be making his regular turn. Again, we've kept the arm going. Does he feel 100% in his arm? No, but neither does any pitcher in late July. But this is around the knee and making sure that we can get it to a place where there's just no compensation. So exactly when that is, I'm not sure, but I feel confident that relatively soon he's going to start getting out and start ramping up for catch play and bullpens and getting him back.
Really consideration to get them a break from hitting, or are you guys pretty confident that wouldn't expedite this thing?
I mean, talking to him, it doesn't bother him at all. So you have to rely on doctors, images, and player feedback. And so the images are something that suggests that we're good to proceed. His feedback is it doesn't bother him when he hits. It's much more about landing when pitching. And so, no. Yeah, I think right after the All-Star break with the injection and.
That needs to be made this offseason. Do you have any more clarity on whether that might be?
That's the first I've heard of that.
Andrew, coming into the final week before the deadline, you've been pretty clear that there wasn't that acute need that you were hoping to not have. Given the uncertainty, though, with Shohei and not knowing, although you're confident that he's coming back, but not knowing when, does that change your calculus at all of what you'd be looking for?
No, I mean, I don't think it puts it an acute need at all. We're confident he's going to come back. Again, if there was something structural, then we would be much more concerned. The fact that there's not, and the fact that it does keep improving, suggests that we're on the right path, and we feel very confident he will be back. And it's also where it gets to the depth that we have and the talented arms that have stepped up with some of our injuries that we feel like have deserved an opportunity to keep going. So it just doesn't fall into acute. That being said, we're always open-minded to different things. But the biggest thing for us is to do everything we can in the off season to not put ourselves in a position in July where you absolutely have to do something, because it is far and away the worst time to acquire a player.
I think there was potential need to move a player at a position like the rotation where you feel like you might not have an acute need, not feeling like you have that need. How does that impact how aggressive you are with bigger name players at this time of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think our mindset is always, and we've talked about this, there just aren't that many star-level players in the game. And anytime one is available, we're always going to, participate in those conversations. We've shown to be very aggressive in the past. And I think, again, we're able to have those conversations. We've traded a lot of really talented young players. But we're able to be in those conversations because of the incredible work by our scouts and our front office and our player development group that has our farm system in such a strong spot to be able to talk to any team basically about any player.
What do you put odds on getting a player like that in the next week?
I don't know. I'm not in the handicapping business.
Have you ever in the past made a trade just to keep that player away from another team if you had the wherewithal?
No, I mean, it's so hard to line up on a trade to begin with. And if I was so concerned about a player going to another team, I'd probably want that player. So then I would just acquire that player.
Andrew, is it fair to say that, like, even for as well as Ohtani has pitched this year, that the bigger importance for you guys is that he is an impactful member of your lineup, that not compromising that part of it is more important than the pitching part?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get into the relative importance. They're both really important to us, and I think get at what an incredible player he is. That being said, it's more reacting to what's going on. I think it is ideal when he is dominating on both sides. And if there is something that is going on that prevents him from doing one or the other, then obviously we'll respond to that. I just don't think about it that way, other than we want to help him do both for as long as he can, as high level as he can. And anytime along the way, if there's something we have to address, we just react to it, communicate our way through it, and figure it out. But I think both are important.
Do you feel like you have enough clarity on Will Smith's neck to have that going into Monday's trade deadline? Or
Yeah, I do. When we were feeling our way through it, a few of the different doctors that we consulted, everyone agreed on the diagnosis part of it. There was just disagreement on the timeline of how long it would take for him to feel good. And when he turned a corner and started to feel way better, lined up perfectly with one of the doctors and what they said. It's obviously a difficult thing to know exactly, and different guys heal differently, but it lines up with it, and he has continued to stack good day on good day and progressing, and actually just saw him on my way here, and he's doing really well.
Given the importance of the six-man rotation that you guys have placed throughout the season, Blake Snell throwing tonight, you'll need a sixth starter to keep that on track. Is there a chance that he comes out of the spine, that he's activated after this rehab start?
I mean, that's something we're continuing to talk about. I think we need to do what we feel like makes the most sense for Blake, because again, it's about getting guys back to stay back. So we'll assess this outing, figure out where we're at, and figure out where to go from that. But don't want to place our needs above doing what we think is right to build a guy back. And it may be that he's in a great spot and we decide to, but I want to make that decision independent of other factors.
Couple weeks, not having Ohtani, not having Glass now, do you still feel like you're in a position to keep the sixth man when Snell, or before Snell returns? Can you throw in a bullpen game every now and then to split
I think that's what we'd have to do. It's a challenge to maintain the six and not have, and you'd have to go with a short pen. And so we're mindful of all of our guys' workload, both in the rotation and the pen. So it's just how to balance those two.
Last one, guys.
Andrew, you talked about you're very confident that Shohei's going to come back. The last 4 or 5 starts, he hasn't looked the same. How concerned were you just about what he'll look like when he does come back?
Yeah, I mean, I think that speaks more to the importance of us taking him offline, pitching. The stuff was still in a really good place. Execution was a little bit off from what we've typically seen from him. And I think it speaks to the knee and the delivery and just the challenge of repeating it over and over and over again. And more speaks to why we are doing this and making sure that we get it calmed down and in a good spot so he can repeat. And then I'll bet on him to execute. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
いかがでしたでしょうか。チームがトレード市場で冷静な戦略を持っていること、そして大谷選手の膝のケアが慎重に行われていることが分かり、ファンとしても安心しましたね。皆さんは期限までにドジャースが大きなトレードを行うと思いますか？ぜひコメント欄で皆さんの意見を教えてください。この動画が良かったら高評価とチャンネル登録もよろしくお願いします。それではまた次回の動画でお会いしましょう。